And welcome to Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and I have a very special guest returning here on the program. Art GISER is my guest today. I'm very excited to have him as a returning guest to talk about the work that he does. So we're going to find out more about that as we get into his unique background, which is he is the creator of Energetic NLP. We're going to find out more about that. I wanted to get into that, but also some steps. That's he's a returning guest. I should have mentioned that. And we're going to talk about some of these steps that we can take maybe in our daily lives. He's also an NLP trainer, obviously, creating the Energetic NLP. He is a medical researcher. He's a healer, an intuitive. He is involved in leadership and a team. He's a leadership and team specialist for major corporations. 4 decades, I can relate, studying psychic development plus energetic and spiritual healing. Art has been blessed to receive 2 empowerments directly from the Dalai Lama of Tibet. And Art, it is great to have you back on this particular day. Rather auspicious, I think we both would agree, considering some of the issues that we've been dealing with just to get here. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, I'm really happy to be back. And often, so often in life, when things get in the way, and a lot of times when things get in the way for people, they'll go, well, maybe I'm not supposed to do it. And very often I find it's the opposite. When things get in the way, it means something really powerful is going to happen. So I'm actually excited.
Well, I will tell you that I couldn't agree with you more. Whether it's a situation where I'm having difficulty getting the guest on the program, i.e. the scheduling, okay? Either if it's not that, or we get to the day of the interview and all of a sudden stuff happens, whether it's what we've been dealing with as far as technical or scheduling snafus and this and that and the other. The more times it takes, the better, I believe, this is my philosophy, the better that interview is going to be. And we're going to make it so by asking you, first of all, let's define NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, for those of us who like to have our acronyms defined, and the difference between your run-of-the-mill ordinary NLP and an energetic NLP that you have created. Let's start there.
Great. Well, first I'll explain what NLP is and then what energetic NLP is. And a lot of people haven't heard of NLP, the neuro-linguistic programming, but it's affected psychology, marketing, speeches, leadership, health, almost everything. And for people who haven't heard of it, I go, well, you've heard of the most famous person in our field, who is Tony Robbins. Now, he has his own way of doing things, but the core of his ability to change people's lives comes from his study of NLP. And NLP, the neuro-linguistic programming, was developed as an alternative to traditional psychology. Because back in the 70s, traditional psychology was all based on insight. And the idea was if you've spent 5 or more years talking about what your mom did, what your dad did, all the different experiences in your life, and if you knew how you got the way you are, that would change your life. And sometimes it worked. And literally, though, they would talk about 5 years, 10 years of therapy. And the people who started NLP went, well, how come some psychiatrists get really rapid results with people? So they started studying them and developed their own system. And one of the big differences in NLP, and we do deal with people's past, but no matter how you got the way you are, so if you have low self-esteem, no matter how you got that way, you have to recreate it every time you feel it. Your brain has to figure out a way to keep recreating it. So in NLP, we focus on what goes on in your mind and in your body to create that, and then how would you change it? And you both do it for taking apart programming that causes problems, but you also can use it to acquire new skills. So like if you wanted to learn to go snowboarding, a snowboarding professional coach would teach you how to move your body. An NLP coach would teach you how to think like a snowboarder. And how you think about anything is the big deal. Now, energetic NLP, we take all of that, but we add in spiritual principles, healing and transformative energy work, development of channeling, clairvoyance, and basically everything I've been learning over the last 40 years or so. I take the best of everything I've learned and put that together to be energetic NLP.
Well, I am grateful that you've done this, because you've also made something available to our listeners and viewers on YouTube or listening on the podcast. You've made available a free gift, and that's the free Energetic NLP Blockbuster Video Mini Course. Now, let's talk about the course and the mini course. What can let's just say, and I very well may do this. I've started to jump into some of these things that have been offered through of my guests. I'm the kind of guy, in spite of the fact that many of my colleagues in this industry over the years that I've been here, I call them media. I can't even use the word. They take advantage. All right. Unfair, in my opinion. Now, granted, when food is brought in or whatever promotional materials are brought in, they jump at it. I mean, they just like, oh, wow. And I'm going, you do realize that that's costing that person money. Well, someone said to me, yeah, but that's factored in. They've already got their advertising budget set up, and that's part of it. Their promotional budget. Okay. All right. I'll accept that. But by the same token, I don't like to impose. It's like this is very important stuff. And if I'm not going to use it, why in the world would I do this? Well, I think I'm going to take advantage of this mini course. But what am I going to get out of it? Where will I be on the other side? By the way, how long is this mini course, this free mini course you're offering? And as I say, I'm going to go from point A to point B. Where will I be at point B?
Well, what it is, just to give a framework around it, it's 4 videos. Each one's about 30 minutes. And where you'll be at the end will be a bit different it depends on where you're starting. What happens during the 4 videos is you're taken through some very simple and very powerful energetic NLP processes that will clear unconscious blocks, limiting beliefs, energetic programming, karma, spiritual contracts. So there's a lot of clearing of what restricts us and holds us in and cages us in life. And then there's also exercises in there to start really bringing out more of your full potential. So where you end up, it will depend a lot on where you start. So if somebody's starting where they feel really blocked in some aspect of their life, by the end of the 4 videos, they'll feel much more open, much more free, and much more empowered. If somebody's listening to it because of a lot of emotional distress, they'll feel calmer, safer, more secure in life. If a lot of people listen to them, not because there's anything wrong, but they just want to go further. The people, I think of them like flowers. They're always going, how do I blossom? How do I go towards the sun?
Yeah.
So even people who've done decades of energy work and spiritual work, and they go, it takes wherever they're at and puts them in a whole new level. And really the best part of it is people get to keep the videos. Well, they're online, but they keep the access to the videos, and they can use them in the future, but they're also learning techniques that after you do it a few times, you can do it anytime during the day when you need a boost or you feel stuck, or before a big meeting or a big interview or a date or anything, how to really reset your mind and your energy field to make things go as well as possible.
Well, folks, Energetic NLP is a powerful blend of thought I was going to get it right the first time. Neurolinguistic programming, clairvoyance, channeling, remote transformative energy work. It's a spiritual principles, and it provides rapid, easy, and powerful ways for people to transform their lives, open more of their full potential, be guided by their inner wisdom, and then some, as we continue here with Art GISER here on Tell Me Your Story. I am Richard Dugan, and I am so glad that you have joined us here on the program, folks. It's really an exciting thing to be a part of. We're going to continue this program here, talking about neurolinguistic programming, but more than that, energetic neurolinguistic programming. Now, again, you have this offer of the free videos for 30 minutes. So you're talking about 2 hours of time, but you space it out. You don't have to look at them all at once. You can binge watch if you want, to coin a phrase. But let's just say there's somebody that says, it's not quite the same. Could you give us, and this is still that person out there listening saying, Art, could you give me a starting point? What are maybe not so much how many steps are there, but what are like the first 1, 2, or 3 steps that I need to begin with in order to access my full potential, transform my life? And by the way, I love the word transform as opposed to change. One of my guests said to me, you don't want to use the word change, because if you can change back. And I'm thinking, well, couldn't you transform and then go back to transform the other way? And maybe it doesn't work that way. I don't know. It's semantics. Be that as it may, what are some of the first, second, and or third steps that a person listening would want to do, whether they access the videos or not?
Well, let's start with the idea that we all have enormous abilities. We have enormous unconscious abilities and spiritual abilities that are there. And the question becomes, two things: what keeps us from using them, or using them to the level that we could use them, and how do we blossom them? And so we need to really look at both. We are all incredibly programmed, and nowadays everybody knows that they're unconsciously programmed. That's no secret anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just the tip of the iceberg. You are energetically programmed. Starting when you're in your mother's womb, your parents, and they don't know that they're doing it, but they're programmed to energetically program their children, which is a good thing, because we all need to be taught the rules of whatever family and society we're born into. Whether it's look both ways before you cross the street, or what you can and can't say. Every group of people has its rules, and parents are not just consciously telling you those, they're energetically doing it. And part of the problem, though, with that is that programming they're bringing in isn't just from them, it's from their parents and their parents' parents and their parents' parents. So we have all kinds of ancestral programming coming in. And it's not whether it's good or bad or right or wrong. It's, does it fit the 21st century? And most of it does not, fit our 21st century world. If you're a woman, a lot of the programming is, be in the kitchen, cooking, raise the kids, and do what your husband says. For men, it's like, that you have to either be dominated or submissive, and just all these kind of rules.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's not that they're good or bad. It's just they don't fit us. So like my ancestors, like a lot of people, they didn't want to stand out because it was dangerous to be seen. It was dangerous to stand out. And that's true for a lot of people's ancestors. Well, here we are in our modern world, and people like you and I, we're out in the public. So that kind of programming doesn't help.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all kinds of programming not to know your own truth. And again, it's not bad or wrong. Anybody who's a parent can tell you that you don't want kids to see everything that's really going on with you. You don't want them to see your fears and your concerns and your weaknesses. You're trying to project stability and strength. And every group has its authority figures. And so they're all constantly energetically programming us. Don't listen to your own truth, listen to me. And again, that's not inherently good or bad. It's just what people do. And for people like yourself, people that listen to your program or watch it on YouTube, people that are attracted to my work, we're all people that want to be authentic. We want to grow and evolve, and we want to know our own truth. We want to live our own truth. And so in energetic NLP, the basic steps are that you're clearing programming, whether it's unconscious, whether it's limiting beliefs, whether it's karma, spiritual contracts, whether it's energetic programming. We're clearing what restricts us, and then we're allowing our spirit to reprogram us in ways that allow us to blossom and open up our abilities. And to me, there's no end point on that. It's the more you evolve and grow and transform, I think for a lot of us, the more we want to keep doing it, which at a certain point gets to be really fun when you're no longer thinking you have to fix yourself. And it's just about, how far can you take it? How good can life become? How miraculous can it be? So again, we're always clearing what's holding us back. And then we're looking at how do we blossom? How do we develop the abilities that we all have? And one of the things that I fundamentally believe is that every single person on the planet has miraculous abilities. They may not be interested in developing them, but everybody's got them. And that old myth that only a few special people have special abilities is a myth.
Yeah.
So the joy to me is teaching people like everybody can be miraculous. It's a normal human thing if you let it be.
One of the things that Jesus said in one of the Gospels in reference to the miracles he was doing and how his disciples and followers were in such awe, they wanted to do those miracles too. Now, this would be kind of cool to help people. And I'd like to think it was from a very non-ego-centered request. He said, sure, I'll teach you this stuff. I'll teach you these magic tricks, but this is nothing compared to what you guys are going to do.
Mm.
And I believe that what he was referring to was just what you've been talking about, and that is transforming our lives. Now, when I was a kid growing up, it wasn't exactly Norman Rockwell, but it wasn't bad. I feel sorry for the kids of today who don't have the same kind of upbringing I had, not so much from my parents, but from the ability to not have to be afraid when running around in the neighborhood, and being able to do whatever you want. Yeah, I stayed out a little too late, get a little scolding from mom and dad, or I went too far on my bicycle. I was a little too young, maybe 8 or 9 or 10 years old, and I went 15 miles away from home on my bicycle. Got a little scolding. I mean, if that was because you hear that phrase, mom and dad are going to kill me.
Yeah.
Where does that really now? Yes, there have been very rare occasions where, yes, mom and dad killed the kids, but that was a whole different thing.
Right.
But then in the 80s, I started going through personal growth programs. I went through LifeSpring, an outgrowth of EST. I went through Omega and Delta Vector, which was founded by a gentleman by the name of George Adair, who is a printer. He had Papago Printing in Phoenix, Arizona. And started out in the 80s with the whole victimhood thing. Oh, it's mom and dad's fault that I'm this way, and so forth and so forth. Then we moved into later in the 80s into codependent, the whole concept of codependency. And then in the 90s, we got into interdependence. We began to realize, it doesn't matter what mom and dad or the schools did. They just did the best they could with what they had. I'm ultimately responsible for my life.
Right.
We unfortunately, we fell back into victimhood in 2015, which was, I'm going, wait a minute, I've seen this movie before and I see how it ends. I'm not going to watch it again, Right. Can the NLP process, and it sounds like it can, but I'm going to have you answer the question, can it help us to transition out of that highly promoted and media-driven victimhood mentality that we're still hearing today here in 2023, so that we can say, you know what? It doesn't matter what they did or what they do. It doesn't matter what art says or does. It doesn't matter what mom and dad say or do, my sis or brother or et cetera, or my boss. Because when it comes down to the final analysis, I don't want to say it's all on me, because I don't like playing the blame game. We're learning. This is the process. Talk to us a little bit about your perspective on all of that.
Well, I love what you're saying, and I was also shocked when victimhood I remember hearing a woman that I know who all of her work is about empowering people, and then really getting into the whole victim thing for other people. I'm thinking, not helpful. And the way I think of it, similar to you, a little different. And some people, got a really tough deal. It's for sure, and I fully acknowledge that, some people, they got a really rough start on life, or maybe not even just a start. And in fact, I was at a high school reunion just a few days ago, and an old friend of mine, I never realized how terrible things were in his home. And he said that coming to my house and being with my family really helped change his life, because he saw a family, not that we were anyways perfect, but where people loved each other and, yelled at each other, but got along and all that. And it kind of gave him a vision of like, okay, things can be different than they are in my home. But so I want to fully acknowledge some people, have had really rough life circumstances, and I'm sure you have, and I have in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, we're not stuck with that. And I used to tell people in my early days teaching energetic NLP, I'd go, there's one thing you're going to have to give up if you study with me. And you may not want to give it up. And I'd ham it up and build it up. And I'd go, what you're going to have to give up is, I can't help it. That's just the way I am. Because we can change the way that we are. Mm-hmm. In my mind, we're these beautiful, powerful spiritual beings that are embodied, and we have personalities, and our personalities can get really screwed up by life and circumstances, but it's changeable. In an energetic NLP, the goal is always to connect somebody more to their spiritual essence. And from that place, keep working on their lives. And how do you keep improving things? By changing all these things that got wired into your personality that hold you back. And once people get that, when they get it, it's not about blame. So it's like, if you can't change something immediately, it doesn't mean you're not visualizing right, or you're screwing up spiritually or psychologically on some other level. It just means that but there's always the possibility and even the probability of things getting much, much better if you can get the right guidance. And luckily, we're in a time where there are programs like yours, and there's a lot of wonderful teachers out there that are helping people become empowered. Because not that long ago, people really were like, well, I can't help it. That's just the way I am.
Yeah.
And they didn't have the resources. So to me, it's getting people out of blaming themselves, and at the same time going, now it's time to empower yourself. Yeah. One of my mentors in leadership work, he'd be working with CEOs and stuff, and he'd help them realize things they were doing that were really harming their leadership. And they'd start to feel bad about it. And he goes, it's okay. You didn't know any better. Now you know.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can do things differently.
Yeah.
He goes, before you didn't know, so you couldn't act.
And I will tell you that there's a catch in that. Okay. Now you know. So if you come into a situation, a circumstance, again, in the future, you can't claim I didn't know, because you can't unknow something you already know, or that you have become aware of. And that's what I used to say at the end of every program. I used to say, now, if you've listened to this entire interview and you have a real problem with it, it's too late. You've already heard it. Now you have to deal with it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday you're going to have to deal with the information that's been presented. You're going to have to, I hope, you're going to have to grok it. Mm-hmm. You want to know what that word means? Go read Stranger in a Strange Land. It's a great book. If you can get it on Audible, even better. But that's something that, as I've gone through my life, and it's sort of where I get my comeuppance, Art. Mm-hmm. I can't feign stupidity or whatever, because I know that I know. And you folks know we're talking with Art GISER, and you folks know that this is Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and Art Geiser's my guest, and he's giving away this free mini-series, which we will be linked to, folks, and I certainly hope you'll take advantage of it. You can clear blocks to living a miraculous life now without effort or having to analyze yourself. I will tell you what really drives me nuts is not so much me analyzing myself. It's others wanting to analyze me and tell me what my problems are. And it's like, excuse me, I know what my problems are, if you will. Let me rephrase that. I know what the challenges are in my life that I want to face and go through so that I can move on. Many wonderful people have improved many areas of their lives, but in other areas of their life, they either feel stuck or just know that they have so much more potential for success and happiness, but they don't know what else to do. Well, these videos, I think, will help you out easily and rapidly clear unconscious, energetic, and spiritual blocks and programming. I want to talk about the spiritual blocks. And I used to question this concept that, well, first of all, if you can't change yourself, why are you going to school? Because that's the whole point of education. Now, by the way, one of my guests, he twisted the definitions on me. He said there's a different definition for education and school. School is book learning. Education is socialization. So let's kind of set that aside. School, you go to school to learn concepts, to learn information. I would love to see it no longer memory road. I'd love to see it actually more practical in that respect. But be that as it may, why do you go? Well, because I want to broaden my horizons. You've heard that phrase, haven't you, Art? Go to the library, read a book, and broaden your horizons. Okay, well, if you can do that on the intellectual level, you can do it on the physical level. If you want a set of six-pack. One comedian says, I don't have a six-pack. I have a one-pack. Yeah. But you go to the gym and you work out and you want to be fit and you're eating the right things. Then emotionally, you might go to therapy. You might go to personal growth programs like I did. And I'm not saying that, okay, they solved my problems, I'm good to go. But then I thought, but what about the spiritual aspect of us? And I always thought that there was no way for that element of us to, how can I put this? I'll put it this way, to be tainted. All right. Because it's inside of us. How could that be manipulated and so on and so on and so on? And yet I guess I could take a look at the last 40 or 50 years and going back to, I think it was 1973, one of the first examples of spiritual manipulation happened down in Jonestown in Guyana.
Yeah.
And then there have been many, many more, and they can be religious based. They can be educationally based. They can be politically based. It doesn't matter. So what you're telling us is that, yeah, there are probably certain spiritual things, not necessarily demons or demonic possession or anything like that. We're not talking about that here, are we? We're talking about the programming, right? Because even on a spiritual level, we're programmed.
Well, you've said so many important things. So let me backtrack. And you said about 10 things that could be a show. But so starting back to when you're talking about, once you know, you can't not know. Mm-hmm. The thing that I loved about NLP when I first got into it, that I bring into energetic NLP, is the first step is knowing. And then, as you were referring to, but then how to do it. So very often people know what they want to change, or they know how they want to be, but they don't know how to get there. So that's the importance of things like NLP and energetic NLP and other fields, is often the way the person's trying to get there will never work. and so sometimes they just need a little piece of information, or sometimes they need a little coaching and stuff to get through a different way of thinking. or we do a lot of work with like limiting beliefs. And sometimes everything changes when you change a particular belief. And for instance, there's a lot of people that know they should quit smoking, but smoking can work on so many different levels, both psychologically and physiologically. When we would do groups years ago for people to quit smoking, we'd go through and work with them so they could handle everything the smoking was taking care of. Then we'd have them quit. And and some people can just up and quit, but for other people, they need some how-tos. So I just wanted to backtrack for that. Mm-hmm. The spiritual level, so let me start with, years ago, I would hear people talking about soul healing and soul retrieval. And I think, well, you don't need to heal your soul. Your soul can't be damaged. And then later I realized what they were talking about. And people use the word soul and spirit to mean different things. So I'll define what I mean by them. When I talk about your spirit, and people reverse this often, when I use the word spirit, I mean the higher frequencies of your non-physical self. And you can think of it as being higher above your body, but the higher frequencies of your non-physical self. And what I call your soul are the lower frequencies of your non-physical self. And you can literally think of it in your energy field being closer to your head. And so when you get into what I'm calling the spirit and these higher frequencies, it's perfect and whole and amazing. It can't be broken. It doesn't need to be fixed. It's the part of ourselves that has vast awareness and abilities. What I'm calling the soul, the lower frequencies of your non-physical self, is just kind of a click above your personality. So our souls can have wants and fears and needs and confusions and be programmed. So I do a lot of work on connecting people's spirits and their souls, because they're not necessarily well connected, and connecting them to their conscious mind and unconscious mind, and their body even. But a lot of times they need a lot of clearing in the soul, reprogramming or deprogramming in the soul. And this ties into things like karma, which affect you. Karma limits us spiritually, and something called spiritual contracts, which are agreements that either your spirit or your soul has made with individuals, with families, with groups, nationalities, religions, spiritual groups. So we work on all of those levels. So again, what I'm calling the spirit, is whole, perfect, doesn't need anything. What I'm calling the soul can be just as conflicted as our conscious minds are.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is interesting how, and I've gone through some of these transformational phases in my life where I had to dump some of the beliefs that I was told were true, because it's not because they weren't true. It was because they didn't make any sense to me, and I'm going, how can anybody believe these concepts? They don't make any sense. They're illogical.
Right.
I think about this, the concept of death. Now, first of all, I don't believe that we die. The physical body wears out, just like a car. You might have a car for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever. And eventually it wears out, unless, of course, you're one of those rather wealthy people who's got the wherewithal to restore it pristinely. Right. And it runs like it runs like a top, and so forth. That's where you go to the gym and you work out and you're eating all the right things, although there are those who have eaten the right things and gone to the gym and they die at a rather early age, but it has nothing to do with their workout or their and so forth. And so we're immortal. That part of us, which is the important part, the essential part, is immortal. And so it's one of those things that I don't know about you, Art, but it just, like I said, it didn't make any sense to me. And so, and even the concept of the devil and hell. I mean, I did some studying, maybe I could call it this, studying with some rabbis that I've had on this program, talking about evil. And if I am understanding correctly, now if I get a call from a rabbi to correct me, that's fine. I'm willing to be corrected. I'll burn all of those huts down and start over. There is no Satan, or maybe there was an angel by the name of Lucifer in that respect. But we're talking from the Jewish perspective about the lowest base nature of man. That's the evil. It's not outside of us. It's inside of us. And it depends upon, as the old Indian proverb goes, or story, it depends upon which wolf you choose to feed, the white wolf or the black wolf. Your choice. So I think that what you're talking about in that regard, I think, is really important. And I'm curious about your upbringing. How were you raised philosophically?
Well, I was raised, my parents were Orthodox Jews, but then they became Reformed Jews. And I was raised in the Reformed Jewish movement. So where we very much questioned everything. And then even done some study of a number of different religions. And, when you're talking about evil, I don't believe in the devil and, in that whole concept. Mm-hmm. There are non-physical consciousnesses that certainly operate in ways that are destructive for us.
Could we say mischievous? To put it kindly.
Well, mischievous, or it can be a lot more than that. But a lot, when I work with people, a lot of times when they talk about demons or the devil, and we work with the energy, it's just what's called a thought form. And thought forms are energetic formations. So, if you walk into a room where people are really loving, you can feel it. If you walk into a room where people want to kill people, you can feel that too. Mm-hmm. There's energy formations created, and some of those can exist very independently. And so, to me, we'll take something like road rage. What happens there, in my opinion, is that somebody starts getting angry and it opens the doorway. And so you have people driving on highways, and they're, often they're upset, they're angry, they're frustrated. So there's energy that builds up on highways that's angry. And sometimes when people start getting angry or frustrated, they open a portal and all that energy rushes in, and then they can get really crazy. So there are energies out there that can, that when we unconsciously open up to them, can really distort our behavior. But it's not like somebody with horns going, you want an apple?
Yeah.
Or go kill that person. For the most part, when people talk about demons and stuff, when I look at them, they're just thought forms. They're no more real than a movie or a robot is real. They exist energetically, but they're not a being. Now, there are also, I think, and a lot of people think, beings that have intentions that we would consider very negative. And so, but the thing is, they can only have power with us if we allow them to. Now, people don't know that. So one time in Brazil, I was at a spiritual center, and I'll make a long story short. Well, do you ever have dreams that are kind of like movies with a plot? And I was having one of those dreams, and I'm not sure if I was the main character in it or I was just kind of watching it. But there was this man, and this evil sorcerer is not physically chasing him, but energetically chasing him. And wherever the guy goes to escape, he hears a voice going, "You can't escape me." And then inanimate objects start moving and stuff. And I woke up and I'm like, well, that's a weird dream. And I'm fully awake now. And I hear a voice in my head, "You can't escape me." And I feel this really nasty energy in the room. And I've been taught, and I believe, that we're all the sovereign of our energy fields. So if something like that's affecting you, and I don't think it was a being, I think it was just a thought form, but it was a really nasty one. And so I started clearing what in me it was hooking into, what kind of program and stuff was allowing it in. But then I became really awake, and I just, in my mind, said to this thought form, I'm not giving you any power. You can be in this room or not be in this room, but you're irrelevant to me. So you want to keep going, you can't escape me, fine, I don't care. It's like, in the background, just the noises, and immediately it dissipated. There's a similar kind of thing, the old Wizard of Oz movie with Judy Garland.
Oh yeah.
She goes to Oz, and the house lands on the Wicked Witch of the West or whatever, East, and then the sister of the Wicked Witch comes in, and they're in the Munchkin land, which is the land the Glinda the Good Witch controls. The witch is threatening Dorothy, and Glinda just looks at her like, and goes, "You don't have any power here. Be gone." Not even like, "You don't have any power here." It's just like, "You don't have any power here. Be gone." And there's a great deal of spiritual wisdom in there. So even when people encounter what they think are evil or demonic energies, and by the way, the 4 videos that I've talked about will teach people how to clear what those energies can hook into in them. Beliefs and programming, because we have a lot of superstitious programming, from ancestrally in all of us.
Yeah.
But the first thing you can just do is go like, "I'm not giving you any power. You can be here. You can be here or not. Talking to the energy. I don't even care." And immediately it starts weakening. So to summarize it, just like there are people that can influence us in negative ways, I do think there are energy formations that can influence us in ways that are not fully in our integrity. But it doesn't mean that the devil, it doesn't mean they're seducing us. They're just something that exists, and you can learn how to take away the power of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're talking with Art GISER. We're talking about Energetic NLP, some of the steps we've mentioned, the free 4-part video series that is available to you that we will be linked to, both on the podcast, as well as we'll have that above Art's head on the video so people can see that. And you're listening to Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, and I have to tell you, Art, there's never enough time, as like you said before. I don't think I'll change this just because it's kind of fun to do, and it challenges my guests from time to time, where I throw out in a little diatribe of 4 or 5 different concepts, and then the guest will decide which one they want to go to, or, as you did, go ahead, I'll address all of them, a little here, a little there. But it's fun to talk about these things, and also to discover new ways to transform our lives. And I thank you so much. I want to have you back again to talk further about these things, and maybe we'll focus on a particular topic for discussion in that, as it relates to energetic NLP. And I really appreciate your time.
Well, I'm really happy to be on the show, and I want to point out one of your recent shows for people that do healing work. It was a woman named Midge. I don't remember her last name.
Oh yes, I believe it was Midge Murphy.
Yeah, and she talks about ethics and integrity and healing.
Yes.
And, I don't 100% agree with anybody ever here, but I love what she's talking about. And the basic thing for anybody who does healing work is not thinking you have to heal everybody and the negative consequences of doing that. So I would encourage people to listen to that. And again, some of the things she said, I would say differently, but I loved what she was talking about. And when I teach people how to be healers, it's one of the main things that I emphasize is it's not your job to heal everybody. Like you brought up like Jesus in the Bible, and I go, it doesn't say in the Bible that Jesus healed everybody.
Nope.
It talks about the people that he healed. And I go, and if they're Christians, I go, well, if Jesus didn't heal everybody, why should you be able to heal everybody? But you can get into what's called inflicting a healing. And what she talks about is, in a way, was summed up by something I heard Ram Dass say, which is you offer what you have to offer, you offer it with love, you let go of it having to work, you remind yourself you're not God, and you do not know what ultimately is supposed to happen. And that's a mantra I try to keep in mind and teach my students.
Well, I'm glad you're here to teach us as students about energetic NLP. We'll talk more in our future interview. We'll set that up. And again, I thank you so much. And I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. New paradigms for a new world, as we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to Lal. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, I'm as happy as you are. And to my dear friend Smokey, I'll see you on the other side.